I'm Jim Riley, and I got involved in trying to found a shelter in 2010. It's hard to know how many families need shelter because they're much more cautious about revealing themselves. They were then, at least, much more cautious about revealing themselves than people who are street folks, and you can see them whether they talk about their desire for a shelter or not. How was it possible to get the shelter going? And that was actually about the easiest thing because the mayor wanted both those kinds of shelters. Um, United Way, Barry Lesso wanted both those kinds of shelters. And city administrative leaders also wanted both those kinds of shelters. So the question was seize one and run with it. So we settled on a family shelter as the goal, and Bud Core talked to the then director of the hospital, whose name escapes me, about whether we could use the house that had been a day shelter for disabled older people, 409 West 2nd Street. And they were happy to have that done. It was up to us entirely to do whatever needed to be done to make the house habitable. Father Bob from St. Paul Catholic Center, on his knees, pulling carpeting up, because it was just a really filthy carpeting over the whole place. And we had one bathroom in that house, and we needed two. We thought we could accommodate three families. We would have to convert some of the living room space into a bedroom and a bedroom into a bathroom. So we'd have still three bedrooms and now two bathrooms and a kitchen and a large enough living and dining area so that people would have some chance of community activity. And the director was at a desk in the living room. Anyway, July of 2011, and you can't say that there was that we were full immediately. We were. I think that's when we had the first family there. And so we had to scout around and find families. It was people didn't automatically know. People in the community needing shelter didn't automatically know that there's a shelter available now. So we spread the word, and it did finally, after a few days, filter through the people who knew something about the community of the homeless and homeless families. And we were soon full and stayed full, so far as I can remember, continuously to the present. What drove me to open a homeless shelter? I don't think I opened a homeless shelter. I helped organize a homeless shelter. And it was widely known among people in the community who were aware of homelessness that a family shelter was needed. So I never went to a single person seeking advice or money or help who said that's a bad idea or the community won't support that. Everybody thought it was a good idea, and the question was, how do we make it work this time? There'd been several efforts since the last one folded about a decade earlier to revive a family shelter. Those earlier efforts didn't work out, and the key thing was Bud Core in the hospital making available this space for $1 a year. If we would fix it up, if we would have professional staff to run it, and if we would monitor it 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. So that was a financial challenge. The first year, along about May, it looked like we weren't going to make it. We were going to run out of money before the NAP credits were made available again. Do they still have NAP credits?
Yes.
Okay. Well, they were a larger source of revenue than they became later on, and they became available for distribution on the 1st of July. So if we could last until the 1st of July, we could at least fight the fight to do a second year of the shelter. And fortunately, I don't know how many $100 we had in the bank at the end of June, but not much, not enough to meet payrolls, but people were desperately eager to get NAP credits. And so you got instantaneous responses to your announcement that they were available. And all the checks were good. Well, it was small. What set New Hope apart, it was small. The smallest shelter that I knew of, Sharon and I visited shelters in Indianapolis and Martinsville, and they were much larger operations. And it was a nice sized building. It had room for, I don't know, 9, 10, 12 families, but they couldn't persuade people to come because they had so many religious obligations associated with residents there and so many other rules that it just didn't fit the community that needed services. It did grow slowly. Within a couple of years, we had a second house from the hospital, likewise, and then a third house. And at one point, we had space for 9 families. And then it went back to 7 because 9 was crowding 301 too much. Well, that was how do we decide to focus on families rather than individuals? We went back and forth about that for a long time. The people who were on the board, Mike talked about the treadmill. The treadmill was always money. How do you raise enough money from a community of givers that already has a lot of social service agencies, some of which are very popular and very well established and very well known? How do you raise enough money from them to fund your operation? And how do you do it the next month? And then the next month after that? And how do you have enough money on hand, not just to pay the bills you know are coming, like wages, but the bills you forgot are coming, or the bills that you don't know are coming, like repairs that you can't do yourselves, the volunteers can't do. I think housing might be more important than advice from behavioralists. Not that that's to be set aside, but having a place to sleep safely at night, it mattered more, I think. There was a guy there who had 3 or 4 children with him, a single dad. And watching him at a picnic we attended manage the exuberance of his kids is a good memory. It is, the current board seems to have the capacity to dream in a way we early people never had. We could imagine having a shelter, but we couldn't imagine having a purpose-built shelter.